Dark dreams of the old lighthouse, the forgotten lighthouse. On a deserted coastline where few dared to tread stood an old lighthouse. Its walls were weathered, its windows shattered, and its staircase rusted over with time. For many years it had remained abandoned, yet sometimes, in the dead of night, its light would mysteriously flicker to life, casting an eerie glow over the crashing waves. The locals avoided speaking of the lighthouse, and those who happened upon it felt an inexplicable unease. Rumors whispered of the last keeper who had vanished without a trace, leaving behind only a journal filled with cryptic entries. Mark, a city photographer, was always searching for unique locations to shoot. Upon hearing the story, he decided to visit. It's just an old building, nothing supernatural, he reassured himself. He arrived late in the evening. A dense fog clung to the shore, and the wind howled through the cliffs. The lighthouse loomed ahead, like a forgotten sentinel of the sea. Mark set up his tent nearby and began exploring the area. The lighthouse door was slightly ajar. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of salt and decay. The walls were covered in mold, and fragments of old newspapers littered the floor. He snapped a few pictures and climbed the stairs. At the top, he found the lantern, long since extinguished. But something was off. It felt as if someone had been here recently. In the dust-covered floor, he saw fresh footprints. Then, suddenly, footsteps. Mark froze. He spun around, but no one was there. Yet, when he glanced at the lantern's glass, he saw a reflection. A tall, gaunt figure with hollow, empty eye sockets stared back at him. His heart pounded. He turned around quickly. Nothing. Was it a dream? Or something worse? The second warnings. Mark descended the lighthouse and decided to stay the night in his tent. Though uneasy, he convinced himself it was all in his head. But at midnight, a sound pulled him from his sleep. A slow, heavy thudding noise. Thump, thump, thump. It echoed from the lighthouse. Someone, or something, was climbing the stairs. Mark held his breath. The footsteps stopped. Then, a whisper, soft and chilling. "Why are you here?" The words drifted through the air like a cold breeze against his ear. Mark grabbed his flashlight, trembling. Shining it towards the lighthouse, he saw the door was now wide open. Then, his blood ran cold. The lantern at the top was lit. Someone had turned it on. The keeper's curse. The next morning, Mark found a tattered note buried in the sand. "Whoever lights the beacon will never leave." His hands shook. Who left this message? Despite his fear, he returned to the lighthouse. This time, he climbed the stairs cautiously, feeling unseen eyes upon him. A breath whispered behind him. He turned sharply. Nothing. But when he reached the top, the lantern was burning brightly, and beside it lay an old journal. He opened it. "They call to me at night. They want me to stay. I hear their voices telling me I cannot leave. I am part of them now." The last entry was smeared as if written in desperation. Mark shut the journal. Then, a voice behind him. "Now, you understand?" He spun around and faced the figure, tall, gaunt, with empty eyes. His vision blurred, and everything went dark. The fourth, the last night. When Mark awoke, he was at the top of the lighthouse. The beacon blazed, casting its eerie glow over the raging sea, but he couldn't move. He looked down at his hands. They were covered in rust. No, not rust. He was becoming part of the lighthouse itself. And then he heard them, the voices calling his name. He finally understood. He was the new keeper now. The next morning, Local fishermen noticed the lighthouse was active again, but Mark was never seen again. Sometimes, though, travelers swear they hear a faint whisper in the wind. Leave before it's too late.